Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Photographer Profile. My name is Nathan Rupert, and I've been a San Diego photographer for over 18 years. Because social media is currently focused on video content such as Reels, I started this channel to give the photographers I've met a worldwide platform to share their work and stories. Please subscribe to the channel if you'd like to be notified right away when new episodes are uploaded, or if you just enjoy the content. So, my guest today is Andrew. Hey, Andrew, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Yeah, just give us an introduction about yourself and your photography for those watching.
For those that don't know me, I am a nature photographer, and I specialize in black and white. Everything you'll see of mine will be in black and white, and I say nature because I do landscape, wildlife, a little bit of anything that involves the outdoor and the natural world.
And where are you located exactly?
I'm in San Diego. I live down in Imperial Beach.
Are you single, taken, is complicated?
I've been married for 15 years.
Congratulations.
Thank
Wow.
you. Yeah.
Do you have any hobbies outside of photography that you enjoy?
How much time do we have? I have too many hobbies.
As long as you,
Um, Yeah, I anything that gets me outside is my preferred hobby, especially if it's involving two wheels. That's kind of where I spend a lot of my free time, whether it's on a mountain bike or my gravel bike or my adventure motorcycle. I enjoy getting out there as much as I can on two wheels. Photography takes up a lot of the time, and between work photography and camping and on the two wheel devices, that takes up a lot of my time. I wouldn't say that I have any other hobbies, if you will,
do you go
besides
by
those.
yourself or groups usually when you mountain bike?
Most of the time by myself. Just my schedule isn't conducive for most people's. Most of my friends have 9 to 5 jobs, so and I kind of use those times on my bike to kind of get away and just enjoy a little free time by myself.
San Diego has some great mountain biking spots.
We
My coworker had an extra mountain bike, and I went with him a couple times. It's difficult. Your hands are shaking so much. The end of the ride, my hands just hurt if you're not used to that
Yeah,
from the vibrations.
I got a gravel bike a number of years ago, and it's quite a bit different because it's fully rigid and there's no suspension at all. It takes a while to get used to that. I've been doing it for so long that I'm fairly used to it.
No more wipeouts these days.
No, try not to. Yeah, I'm getting a little older, and I have a lot to lose if I get hurt. I try not to go down, but it happens every now and then.
It happens.
Yeah.
How did you get into photography to begin with?
That is an interesting question that I've tried to narrow down. I don't have a background in it. I didn't grow up around it. I didn't have anybody that really influenced me that I can remember growing up, other than my grandfather had a bunch of the National Geographic magazines around. He had
Yeah.
boxes of them, so I would, flip through those. I wouldn't say I was into photography per se. I grew up in the Midwest in northern Indiana, and
Me too, actually.
oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, whereabouts?
I'm from South Bend, Indiana,
I
originally.
went I went to Riley High School.
Oh my God, this is crazy. I did not know
Yeah.
about this ahead
Oh,
of
really?
time.
Yeah.
I went to Clay High School in
Oh,
South
did you?
Bend.
Okay. Yeah, my whole family
Wow.
still lives there. I'm the only one that got away.
Half my family is now in Indianapolis,
Okay.
and then my other half is in Wilmington, North Carolina. Riley was one of our big competitors, rivals across
Yeah.
town there.
Yeah, for sure. Growing up there, there's not a ton of nature. We would go to Potato Creek State Park every summer with my grandparents had a pop-up trailer, and my brother and I would go get lost. That was in the back in the good old days where you could go and, all right, we'll be back when it gets dark out. That's just kind of what you did. There is some nature, but nothing like out west out here. I went to school at IU in Bloomington, and then I moved to Cincinnati for a couple of years, and that's where I met my wife, and we moved out west. And once I got a view of the Eastern Sierra and then the deserts, I just really fell in love, and I wanted to kind of document things. Got a cheap little camera and started taking that with me on my adventures going out, and it kind of just grew from there, and I really enjoyed it. And my family back home enjoyed seeing pictures of things and places that I was going. When my wife and I got married, somebody gifted me a Canon. I think it was like a 20D, maybe, if that sounds right.
Okay. Well,
And yeah, this was a while ago, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I still enjoyed it. I'm pretty OCD, so I'm a perfectionist. I went down a pretty dark rabbit hole of learning all about the camera and photography and how to not only use the tool but also get better at the craft and the art. And I just tinkered around with it for a long time. Then about 7 years ago, I really got serious into it and started kind of honing my craft.
What do you shoot with now?
Right now, I'm on a Sony system, so I kind of met a guy here in San Diego, and he kind of started mentoring me, and he used Sony, so I it was just easier for me to learn from him. He suggested that I get a Sony A6000. I
Okay.
got one of those, which was very affordable at the time, and I used that camera and I loved it. And I sold it a couple of years ago, and I still regret selling that camera. It was so nice, so small. Just put a little 50 millimeter lens on it, put it in your pocket, and you can go almost anywhere.
Oh, by the way, my high school is actually shutting down, Clay High School.
Oh, is it
They're
really?
closing it. Yeah, sad.
That's it? Like no more clay?
Yeah, no more Clay. Yeah, I'd be
Wow.
like, hey kids, that used to be my high school. That building there.
Riley that I went to was torn down and rebuilt a number of years ago. It's weird when I go back and it's not the high school I went to.
What can you do though? All the way out here in California.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Do you consider yourself 100% professional or semi-pro or amateur? What do you consider yourself?
well, who are we asking? You
The
know, the quality of the work or the IRS? Because according
IRS.
no, then I am not. More than 51% of my income does not come from photography. I'm not a pro, but the quality of the work, I definitely think that I'm professional quality, and that's the direction I'm going. But my full-time gig, my wife owns a restaurant, and I work for her doing the not fun things like the payroll and the HR. And photography is my release, and also I enjoy doing it the way I'm doing it. I don't do it full time. I don't know that I ever want to do it full time. I enjoy
Right.
kind of doing the 50-50 part of it. And black and white, choosing to do black and white only is it's a longer, more difficult road, if you will, to kind of get to where I want to get to. So I'm okay with that. So that's my answer. I hope that
You
answered your question.
can take some great black and white pictures of her food for the restaurant.
It doesn't really work out that well.
What excites you to get out there and shoot after all these years? What keeps you going?
Honestly, it really is my love of the natural world. There's always something out there to see, to inspire me, even if it's just a group of trees or a group of rocks, a different lighting. It really is just my love of the natural world and getting out there and kind of, I don't want to say escaping life, but just kind
Right.
of being able to quiet the chaos of everyday life and to explore new places. I'm kind of an explorer at heart. I love going to new places. I was just in Yosemite last week, and I went to a couple different places that I had never been to before. And I don't do a ton of research. I'm not the photographer that uses photo pills or Planet and plans out every shot and where I'm going. I
Yeah.
kind of just, okay, I'm going to Yosemite. I'm going up to Tuolumne Meadows because I've never been there. Here's a couple of areas, and off I went. I just enjoy kind of looking at maps and exploring that way. I'm not a huge planner. The fun to me is just exploring new places.
Do you have a favorite place that you've traveled to so far?
They're all my favorites. It's
They're
tough.
all your favorites?
It's tough because, like here, I consider the Eastern Sierra local. I love the Eastern Sierra. I love Yosemite. Death Valley is probably one of my favorite places. My wife doesn't understand it. She's been once and she just doesn't understand the desert. It took me quite a number of visits for me to understand the desert. Coming from where we come from, there's nothing like Death Valley or Joshua Tree or a desert. You know,
Yeah.
seeing it for my first time 30 years old, my mind was just blown, and there, I think it was a little bit of sensory overload. By the second visit, I went by myself, and I was like, wow, this is quiet. I kind of get it. And the third visit, I really understood just the quietness and the solitude of the desert. So I love Death Valley. Joshua Tree is nice as well, but there's just something about Death Valley, and it's so diverse. If you can get off of the main road that goes through the middle and do a little exploring, it's such a diverse place.
Yeah.
I went to Japan this February. That was a lifelong bucket list for me, and I really, really enjoyed that. I got to go up to Hokkaido in the north, and it was just filled with snow and these big rolling snow fields. And I went to Kyrgyzstan, and that place really blew my mind. I'm actually teaching a workshop there next summer. So,
I saw that on your Instagram, actually.
yeah, so I'm very excited about it. It's an amazing place. It's kind of still a developing country because they've only had their independence from Russia for about 20 years. But the advantage to that is that there is just raw, untouched landscape everywhere, and the Tian Shan Mountains are just incredible, and they're beautiful, and they're towering everywhere. That's probably one of the favorites that I've been not local, but
Gotcha.
yeah, local. Again, the Eastern Sierra and Death Valley, or I take several trips to both of those each year.
What's the best piece of photography advice you received from a mentor or just in your own knowledge and travels?
I've received a lot of advice. My mentor, he would tell me at any point in time, within 10 feet of you, there's an award-winning image. It's your job to find it. That kind of stuck with me, and I remind myself that a lot. And then going back to the 10,000 hour rule, go out and practice a lot and practice deliberately and get that 10,000 hours. Then you can kind of get proficient at what you're doing. Those two things I try to keep in the back of my mind at all times, and understand that I'll try to be, I don't want to say professional because I am professional, but I'll never know everything. I'll never be perfect. There's always something
Yeah.
to learn. If I think I've learned it all, then it's probably time to start doing something else, because that'll just never happen. If you're willing to grow as an artist, you'll never know it all.
How do you feel about AI in photography? The big buzzword the last couple years here.
Honestly, I don't have a big opinion either way. If I don't use it, and you're talking about in terms of creating.
Anything using it for photo manipulation, creating AI images, how will affect
Yeah,
the industry? Will it put photographers out of business? What are your thoughts
I don't
on
think it'll
that?
put photographers out of business. If I sell my work at a lot of art fairs and art markets, and my collectors are people who want to resonate with a piece of art, and they want photography. They know that my work is photography. It's not something that I created in a computer, and there's nothing wrong with that. I talk to a lot of people at each art fair. I'll see a lot of them that go to other booths and they buy paintings because they want a painting and not photography, or there is digital art there. I see people buying that, and that's no problem. I don't think it's going to affect some photographers, but not everybody. I don't mind it. I don't use it. I don't mind if other people use it.
Yeah.
If you are going to use it, don't try to pass it off as real. This is, oh, I took this photo. Just be honest and say, I started with a photograph, but I did all of this and ended with this stuff. And it's really cool, but just don't pass it off as, photography, if you will.
I think Instagram
Sorry?
does have like a toggle when you upload an image, use with AI or something like that.
Yeah, it hit me with one image. I think it was my last image. I don't know if it was because I used the new noise reduction. I had a couple of, sensor spots. And instead of just using, Lightroom, I just used Photoshop in that way.
Right.
It somehow knew that, it was the AI fill. So it was the first time that I had seen that on Instagram. I've actually started using ChatGPT recently, and I really enjoy
Interesting.
it. It's really kind of helped me be a little bit more productive in my life. I think there is a time and a place for AI is the short answer to that question.
What do you want to happen to all these photos that you've taken when you die? I know it's a little morbid, but have you ever thought about
Yeah, no,
that?
I
Your
heard.
legacy?
I don't know. I've never thought about it. I don't have children. My wife and I are not having children, so I won't have anybody to pass it to. I suppose if my wife is still around, maybe I'll have her see if she can donate it somewhere. See if somebody wants it. If not, honestly, I don't know. I've never really given it much thought.
There has to
I
be a
hope it
black and
lives
white
on.
gallery somewhere.
Yeah, I hope it lives on somewhere. When they come to clean out the house when I'm gone, they don't just see a box sitting on my desk and toss it out, because it's,
Yeah,
all
that would
my
be sad.
everything is on a hard drive and backed up in the cloud. they'll never see it in the cloud. Hopefully they'll think, oh, what's on this hard drive? But yeah, it's an interesting question. I've never really given it that much thought.
Well, I appreciate your answer regardless.
Yeah.
All right, you sent me some of your photos ahead of time. There's lots, so I
Right.
want to make sure we have time to go through them all. Let me go ahead and share. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't mean to
Yeah, go
send you
ahead.
that one with the border and the signature on it, but you get the idea.
Do you want me to try to zoom in, or this is
Now,
good enough?
if you think it's good enough, it's good enough for me.
Okay. Yeah, just explain the story behind this photo here.
This one is from my trip to Japan that I took in February. We actually went, my wife and I, for a vacation, just kind of the two of us to get away. I've always wanted to come here, and I've always wanted to come to Hokkaido. We were in Sapporo on one leg of the trip. I said, I just need one day for photography. I took a train out to this little farm village and hired a local guide for the day to take me around. And I got lucky. The weather was total gloomy to total whiteout snow. Then everything would go
Wow.
away, and it was sunny. It happened probably at least a dozen times throughout the day. It changed through all of those different conditions. We were just driving around, and I really wanted to see a red fox. About an hour left in the day, we come around this corner on one of the farm fields, and there was this fox just laying there in the snow in front of this tree.
Wow.
I just so excited, and we were probably 75 yards away. We just pulled the car over and kind of got out and watching. Oh, I wish I had my longer lens, but packing light. I realized if I would have had my longer lens, I probably would have just focused on the fox itself, and I would have missed the literal bigger picture here. The tree was just a perfect object in the frame there to kind of put on the side of the frame and give a little bit more story to the image. The fox was laying there, and then after like 15 minutes, he kind of got up and started walking away, and then almost as if like, I'm not fully awake yet, we sat down and kind of looked back at the tree for a while, and it was one of those things where I couldn't have put this image together better myself if I tried. Everything just kind of organically happened. It's one of my favorite images I've ever taken.
I
And
love the little paw prints in the snow
yeah,
of the little
exactly.
trail leading to the fox.
I have this one in my booth for my shows, printed 24 by 30, a framed print, and it's when you can get up close to it and see all the details and the little tracks in the snow, it's just really, really cool.
Did you
So
research foxes ahead of time, like you knew they're in that specific area, or that
yeah,
was
I
just
just
something you
kind of
found out?
no, I kind of knew they were in this area. There's a lot of fox, up in that area. I knew that they would be there. I was just hoping that I would see one. It was funny, I didn't see one until the end of the day, and then we saw like six. I knew my equipment, knew all my settings, everything that I wanted. I wasn't fiddling around with anything. There it is. Hurry up, get it before he goes away, and he did.
Did you see the food it was looking for by any chance? Was it looking
I
for
don't think
animal or anything?
he wasn't. It was sleeping in the little spot in the foreground, and then he kind of got up, sat down for a while, and then he took off over the backside of the hill there. So maybe he
Interesting.
went to search for food after that.
There you go. Here's a little zoom for those people if they want to look at it closer.
And it's on my website, a pretty bigger size of it.
All right. Well, let's take a look at the next one. Tell us about this shot.
This is from my Kyrgyzstan trip, and that is, I believe that is Hertel Peak. This was one of the more adventurous days. So we got in this big Soviet bus that took us up this mountain through rivers, and then we got to as far as it could take us to the base camp. It was a pretty long hike up to the next area, but the group of us decided to take horses up. We rode up to the next camp, and this was the sunset of the first night camping up there. I just kind of took off by myself and trying to find something cool. I wanted to get as close to the peak as I could. I could see it from a distance. I didn't realize that the glacier was kind of snaking down until I got closer. And And it was pretty cloudy like the whole time until I got to this location. I was setting up and it was kind of misting a little bit. And I got, my camera ready. And I was originally going to go for a really long exposure because, it was really just overcast. And I was going to try to get some cloud movement.
Yeah.
But as soon as the clouds parted and I saw the moon kind of sitting right there, well, I can't do a long exposure now. I composed and got this image, and I just really enjoyed not only you're getting these beautiful peaks in the background, but like I said, the glacier snaking down kind of looked like a snake to me, and it was almost like greeting the swan that is the reflection in the water. So this image
Oh,
is
wow.
titled Serpent and Swan.
I didn't realize that looks like a swan. That's crazy until
Yeah,
you mentioned it. I love the symmetry there in the water. That's
yeah.
great.
I like to say I got lucky. Nature did most of the work. I just needed to position myself to capture it and get it. I was very excited about this one.
Okay, let's take a look at the next one. All right, tell us about this shot here.
This is Eureka Dunes in Death Valley. I think 2 or 3 years ago. This is actually one of my favorite areas of Death Valley. It's pretty remote to get to. It's pretty rugged to get there, and you need kind of high clearance 4-wheel drive vehicle.
Oh,
But
you
it's
need a
really,
four-wheel
really,
drive to get to the spot.
depending on which way you're coming from, you need 4-wheel drive. The other way, you can come mostly on a road, but it takes a really long time if you come from that way. It's very remote, which means there's very few people there. Two of my really good friends are pro photographers in Utah.
Oh, okay.
They also ride motorcycles like I do. We meet at least once, sometimes twice a year in Death Valley to do like a week-long moto camping photography trip. It's just the three of us for 2 days out in this location. I love sand dunes. They're kind of one of my favorite subjects to photograph. They're just so diverse and there's so many options. This was one of the sunset images, and I love black and white. I really love using the kind of harsh light to my advantage sometimes. This is probably like 2 hours before actual sunset. The harsh light
Gotcha.
was just really casting these beautiful, contrast and really highlighting the shapes and the textures and the patterns in the sand. And then I got lucky in that cloud was going through the sky, just gave it another element and depth to the image. It's not the highest dune, but I believe it's the tallest dune in California. Hey, sorry.
We have a fan. We have a fan of your photography there.
Yeah. Sierra. Her name is Sierra, one of my favorite places.
Sierra.
Yeah. So
So you rode a dirt bike to this spot, is that right? Or motorcycle?
yeah, it's an adventure motorcycle alley, so you don't ride on the dunes. There's a dirt road that goes around the front and through to the back of it. It's probably a mile walk from the road to get out to the dunes. It's pretty remote, so there's hardly any footprints at all out there.
Did you use a tripod or no, just handheld for this?
Most of the time I'm handheld. This one most likely would have been a handheld shot.
Did you ever mention why you do black and white only? Or I don't know if
I
you
didn't.
talked
I
about
don't
that.
think I did. Again, it's another one of those questions where I've tried to answer it, come up with a really unique and interesting, answer, but it's really just what I'm passionate about. I really love black and white. When I started getting serious into photography, I would come home with the nice images, in color, but when I would make a black and white image that I really enjoy, it made me feel something. Just this mood and this emotion. I just really fell in love with that feeling. And the more I got into it and kind of it is more challenging for sure.
Yeah.
Shooting for black and white only. The simple answer is it's what I love. It's what I'm passionate about. It really just makes me, feel something. Nothing wrong with color. I still shoot in color. I still teach people in color. In fact, at the end of the month, I'm going to Utah to meet my two buddies, and we're going to go on a fall color trip for, about a week on our motorcycles and chase some fall color around Utah. I still love doing it, and I'll create my personal, fine art, if you will be in black and white. But of course, I'll capture some color images because that is the subject, right? The fall color.
Yeah.
But that is my answer. It's what I love and what I'm passionate about.
Well, I'm happy to hear you haven't abandoned color completely.
No, no, no,
I'm
not at
just kidding.
all.
Yeah, let me share the other one here. All right. Tell us about this one.
That is from the Grand Tetons. Several years ago, my wife and I were on a ski trip there, and we were on vacation skiing, and she had some family friends that lived there. It was nice to have, a place to stay. I just said, I need at least a half a day to go out and do some photography, and I'm very lucky. My wife is extremely accepting of it, and she, actually, yeah, go do your thing. I need some alone time myself too. But it's great because we both, we complement each other, and I don't have to worry about, I gotta go. I want to go sneak off. But if she totally gets it. Go do your thing, and so I went out and I was just driving around. It was the first time I had been there, and my mind was just completely blown. And I haven't been there in the non-winter season. I was going down this long kind of stretch of road and looking around out the window, admiring everything. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw some movement. I went up a little bit where it was safe and turned around. Sure enough, this coyote was off in the distance. He was probably about 75 to 100 yards away and just howling.
Wow.
I have no idea who. There was no other animals around, no other people around. So luckily, I had my 2 to 600 with me, handheld. I didn't have a tripod, so I just used the hood of the car to stabilize myself. And we probably spent about 45 minutes with each other. The beauty of shooting with digital is, just pressing the shutter and I got I got one that worked. You don't see the other 300 where maybe his head was a little turned or his mouth was a
Yeah.
little bit different. It just howled for a while, and then it was done and over, and quietly walked off into the woods.
I can't believe he howled for 45 minutes. He did
Kind of
howl
off
then?
and on. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but pretty much, yeah, just off and on. Kind of have no idea. It was a really neat experience and a very special moment for me. I enjoy coyotes. I know they're a little controversial, especially here in San Diego, but they're much needed part of the ecosystem. It just all came together so well. I'm really happy with this one. I love this one. It's a crowd pleaser. I have a big framed print of this in my booth. It's probably my second best selling image.
I can believe that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at your
And by the
next
way,
one
that one is
here.
titled "The Ballad of the Coyote" because it's just singing, and I enjoy that.
Okay, this one's a little more abstract.
This one is from Mesquite Dunes in Death Valley. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's very popular because it's very easy to get to. There's a parking
Okay.
lot, and you just start walking. A beautiful area. Uh, a lot of times, if there's no wind and no storms, there's a lot of footprints everywhere. As I was waiting for the light, I just noticed these beautiful textures in the sand. And so I thought, well, I've got some really harsh light right now. I can really use this to my advantage and use the contrast to highlight the shapes and the texture of the sand, highlight the light just skipping across the top of the sand dunes there. So,
Looks like a
when
zebra.
yeah, kind of. I've never looked at it that way, but yeah, almost, huh? A lot of people in the beginning, people tell them, "Oh, you can only shoot at the golden hour," and I say that's not true at all. This was at least 2, 3 hours before sunset. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. Really harsh lightings. If you can learn how to see in different lighting conditions, you can create images in almost any light. Kind of lesson in learning how to see shapes and patterns and learn how to see how the light is going to affect it.
That is a good lesson for beginning photographers. Don't restrict
Yeah,
yourself.
if you can learn how to use it, and if the subject matter and the place presents itself, then there's art to be made almost anywhere at any time. Don't put yourself in a box, which some people think that I do because I only do black and white, but I really disagree. It allows me to be even more creative. it's not that I'm putting myself in a box, but I'm kind of okay. This is the framework. I know what I'm doing and what I'm working with, and I feel actually I'm more creative. I can come up with images like this. This image would have never worked in color, just because the sand was essentially a little bit yellow because of the time of the day. The light was pretty harsh. Another reason I love the black and white, for me and my personality, it allows me to be more creative.
Okay, let's go to the next one. A little different.
Yeah, if I gave you 10 guesses, where would you think this one's from?
It looks like a wave in the background, but then I don't really see those type of birds by the beach.
Yeah, it's a red-winged blackbird. You'd probably never guess it, but it's actually here in San Diego County.
Oh, okay.
It was two winters ago. We got one of those really wet, cold snowstorms for about a week. I knew I wanted this image. It took me a couple of years to get it because San Diego doesn't have this kind of weather very often. I needed the temperature to be below freezing, and I needed the sunrise to be coming from behind the bird to backlight its breath as it was
Yeah.
singing in the morning. This one is titled Hymn Number 23 because when I parked and got out of my car at, I think it was about 5 o'clock in the morning when I got to the spot to hike out, it was 23 degrees out.
Wow.
And it took me a couple of years that actually I went 4 days in a row trying to get this shot. And my wife, you're going to sit out in the freezing cold again? And yeah, absolutely. I loved every second of it. And this is the Laguna Meadow up at Mount Laguna. There's this group of reeds, and the black part that you're seeing in the background is actually a water from a pond, and then the white part in the upper is ice on the water.
Oh, a
And so
pond. See, what I knew it was water.
yeah. So there's this group of red-winged blackbirds that there was a bunch of them there, and it was just beautiful morning listening to them wake up as the sun was coming. I was hoping that I would get it this time, and I did. I was really excited. And again, same thing, I'm trying to look on the tiny little thumbnail on my camera, but I also don't want to miss anything. When I got home, I was like, yes, finally.
I didn't know birds breathe that heavy that you could see their breath.
Yeah, when
That's
they're
new to
singing in
me.
the morning and it kind of comes out forcefully enough. Yeah, no, the songbirds definitely. It's the songbirds that do it, and they have enough. And again, it needs to be freezing to kind of freeze the vapors coming out.
All right, let's look at your last one here. This is a beautiful landscape.
Thank you. And this one is called Morning on the Merced. This is the Merced River in Yosemite Valley. This is, for good reason, my best-selling image. I went with two friends of mine a couple of years to Yosemite to photograph firefalls when, that time of the year where the sunset lines up with Horsetail Falls and it makes it glow red. The water coming off the waterfall glows red.
Right, right.
This was the morning after when we were leaving, and I wanted to stop and get one last picture on the way out. It was so cold, so unbelievably cold. I mean, my fingers were just going numb. But again, it was a beautiful morning. There was nice kind of pastel colors in the sky as the sun was coming. By creating a black and white image, I'm really able to showcase all of the subject of El Capitan there, and all of the other kind of supporting items in the image. And you really get to see, when you see this one printed big, the rocks and the grass in the foreground. There's so much texture in there. There's trees in the midground there. It's a very classic image of Yosemite.
Right.
I'm definitely not the first person to shoot from here, and I won't be the last, but I feel like I made this image mine, and I'm very, very happy with it. I love this image.
Did you have to use a filter to be able to see the rocks under the water or beneath the water, or no? You can just see those normally.
Yeah, anytime there's water, I use a polarizing filter to kind of get the reflection kind of and where I want it.
How many seconds? I mean, this probably wasn't even a second, right? Just a normal.
Yeah, no, this one wasn't a long exposure. But I do love long exposure, especially on the coast, on the ocean. I've been known, 2.5 to 4 minutes. I love it.
4 minutes. Wow. With like
Yeah,
a 10 stop
yeah.
filter.
For me, you're standing there for 4 minutes just looking at the ocean. Like that's, you know, there's worse things to do. So one of the reasons I love the long exposure, like I said, especially at the ocean, is it kind of forces you to do nothing.
Not a bad day in the office. Just sit there for 4 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you ever want people to walk in front of your camera, just put it on a tripod at the ocean, and everybody walks right in front of it.
I've had that happen. Believe. Okay, I think that's all the photos.
Okay.
We have a couple more questions before we wrap
Sure.
things up here.
Yeah.
Is there a dream shot that you haven't taken yet?
No. And as I mentioned before, I'm not a huge planner. I like to be more organic in my photography. I have dream locations.
Right.
I really want to get back to Central Asia. Like I said, I'm going to Kyrgyzstan next year to lead a workshop. I'd really like to get to, Nepal and see the mountains there. A ton of places on my bucket list. I have a lot of like dream locations. I don't really have dream shot. And the other reason I don't do a lot of the planet, as I said, is for me and my personality, it puts a lot of expectation on me. The more that I
Right.
plan and the more like, okay, this is what I want. And then in landscape and nature photography, I have zero control over weather. If I have this image in my mind and then the weather's not cooperating, I tend to get a little bummed and that affects my creativity. I just kind of pick locations and then I just explore from there, and the weather does what the weather does and I make it work. I really want to get to the Gobi Desert. Is big place on my list. My wife's
Yeah.
family lives in Ireland, so I've been there a number of times and I love it there. So I think Norway is probably another place that's pretty high, but in Africa, like I said, I do a lot. I would like to do more wildlife, and that's kind of probably top three of my dream locations right now is getting to Africa and shoot elephants.
Do you have any weird or wild stories from any of your travel adventures? Maybe you saw animals doing crazy stuff or a natural disaster, something happened to your gear. Any stories you can
No,
think of?
I tried thinking of some, and gosh, knock on wood, I really have been lucky. I don't have any disaster stories. I guess one, kind of stupid, like where you smack your head, is I went to Antelope Canyon a number of years ago,
I've been
and
there. It's an awesome spot.
it's unbelievable. We were one of the very last photography tours that they took on. They would take like groups of 10 and then they would stop everybody in the whole place, and we could set up our tripods for like 3 minutes at each little spot. There's one spot, I don't know if you've seen it or other people, where the sand is kind of coming down, and this one location, and it's, you can kind of get that nice, it almost looks like water coming over one of the rocks. But anyway, so they get that, a guy goes behind and he shovels sand over, and it rains down, and as he's shoveling it, a piece flew off and it hit the front of my lens. And
Oh no.
it's a nice lens. It's a pretty expensive lens, and it chipped the front element. And the worst part is I had a new UV filter in my bag. I was just too lazy to put on. So I could have
Uh,
saved a $2,000 lens from getting chipped if I wouldn't have just been lazy and put a, $40 UV filter on the front. But I've been pretty fortunate. I don't want to jinx myself, but I'm also a risk taker, but I'm a calculated risk taker. I don't put myself in a lot of positions where there could be too much disaster. A number of years ago, I was in the Eastern Sierra, and I was hiking up, and it was early spring. I kind of got to a point where, like, I don't know if I should be here. I don't think I should be going any further. And a guy came on skis, and he kept going further up, and I was like, man, I would really like to follow him, but I didn't have any the proper gear. I went around, and there was some ice bridges going over the stream coming down, and I for sure probably would have fell through one of those if I tried. That was one of those, like, Okay, I'm going to listen to myself. I'm going to come back and do this another time. My wife would kill me if I died up here doing something stupid. I tried thinking of some really fun, cool, interesting story, but luckily I don't really have any. I've just got a lot of unreal stories that for me, like experiences and things that I've seen. And,
Yeah.
I myself, I've started like, your channel. I've started and created some content of my Yosemite trip, and I'm going to do one in Utah and try and share my adventures that way. I think it'll be fun.
And what is the best way for people to contact you? Do you prefer Instagram or your website? How do you prefer people reach out to you?
To reach out to me, it's probably Instagram, although I'm not on it a ton. All my contact info is on my website and Instagram, so either place is fine. Instagram is kind of a place for stuff, if you will. My portfolio is my website. If people
Gotcha.
want to see my portfolio, go to my website. If you just kind of see what I'm up to and what I'm doing, Instagram is where it's at.
Are you going to be any art shows in San Diego coming up?
Yeah, this coming weekend I have Art Walk in Carlsbad. And then the week after that is the Art and Wine Festival in La Jolla.
Oh, I didn't know there was an art walk in Carlsbad. That's interesting.
Yeah, they had it a number of years ago, and then COVID kind of screwed it up. They brought it back 2 years ago. Yeah. And speaking of
Yeah.
COVID, so the Coyote shot in the Grand Tetons, that was 2 days before the world shut down from the pandemic.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah,
perfect timing.
it kind of was because we flew home the next day, and then we were like, wow, what would we have done? I think we would have been stuck there.
I'm always curious with the art shows and the art walks.
Hmm.
Do you find that it's usually worth the time in terms of sales and future business and stuff like that?
For me, yes. It's a ton of work. It's a lot of money up front. Uh, and this year, I changed what I'm doing, and I'm doing double booths at the shows, essentially two tents and two spaces. That's double the rent, if you will, for each show. Plus, I need
Yeah.
that much more inventory. It's a ton of work setting up, being there all day, every day, talking to people all day, every day, and then you got to take down on Sundays. But I love it. When you get that first person that stops dead in their tracks walking by and goes, wow, look at that. It makes it all worth it. You get a lot of good feedback at them. I love doing them. It's for me, it's the best way for me to get eyeballs on my work. I don't have a studio or a gallery. It's really the only place for people right now to see my physical work up close. I don't have my work in any galleries at the moment. I've got some stuff in the works. I don't if that answered your question on that. I think it's worth it. It's a lot of money and a lot of work, but for me, it's worth it, and I still do them.
I mean, that answered it perfectly. Any final thoughts before we end it?
No, I mean, again, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for coming on, and I'm loving learning about all these photographers here in San Diego. Who knew we had so many great photographers? It's never
Yeah,
ending. I could probably
yeah,
do a new photographer in San Diego every day on this podcast.
yeah. It's there. We've got a lot of talent here for sure.
All right. Well, thank you, and have a great night.
All right, thanks you too. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye, Andrew.
Bye.